I'm glad you're here. Really. There's something special about taking time to understand yourself, to understand your journey, to understand your spirit. Most people move through life reacting instead of reflecting, running instead of listening, surviving instead of growing. But the fact that you're here, engaging with a message like this one, tells me something about you. You're hungry for wisdom. You're ready to look deeper. You're ready to see life differently. And that readiness alone already sets you apart from who you used to be. Today, we're going to walk slowly, thoughtfully, deeply through 10 spiritual truths I wish I had understood earlier. I'm not talking about cliches or surface-level advice or motivational quotes that sound good but don't stick. I'm talking about truths that reshape how you see yourself, your relationships, your purpose, your pain, your growth, and God. These truths didn't come to me all at once. They arrived through mistakes, heartbreaks, quiet nights, unexpected lessons, uncomfortable awakenings, and long seasons of confusion. They showed up when I wasn't looking for them. They taught me when I wasn't prepared, and yet each one of them changed something in me permanently. My hope is that as you listen, something changes in you too. Not in a dramatic way, not in a way that overwhelms you, but in a slow and steady way that brings peace to your mind, rest to your heart, and clarity to your path. Let's begin with something foundational, something that took me far too long to understand. Peace. There was a time in my life when I thought peace was optional, something you pursued when everything else was done. Like peace was a reward for accomplishing enough, earning enough, pleasing enough people, or checking enough boxes. I thought peace was something you got at the end of a busy life, not something you needed in order to live well. But the truth is, peace is not the end of the journey, it's the foundation of it. Peace is the silent ground your life stands on. Without peace, everything becomes shaky, unstable, unpredictable. But with peace, even chaos starts to lose its power. Think back for a moment. Think about a season of your life when you were constantly overwhelmed. Maybe it was a relationship where you never felt secure. Maybe it was a job where you couldn't catch your breath. Maybe it was a decision you were afraid to make. Maybe it was a period of overthinking that kept you up at night. You might have been functioning, but you weren't at peace. And here's the thing, you probably didn't realize how expensive that lack of peace was. A lack of peace cost you sleep. It cost you confidence. It cost you clarity. It cost you joy. It cost you presence. It cost you mental space. It cost you spiritual sharpness. It cost you the ability to hear God clearly. There was a time in my life when I was busy, productive, active, chasing everything I thought mattered, but inside I was restless. I had noise in my mind constantly. I felt like my soul was carrying too many things at once, and I kept telling myself, once I achieve this, I'll feel better. Once I make this amount, I'll relax. Once this person understands me, I'll be okay. But it never worked. I learned the hard way that peace does not come from achieving more. Peace comes from releasing what is not aligned with your soul. Let me give you an example. There was someone in my life, a friend who I cared about deeply. They weren't bad. They weren't toxic in dramatic ways. But every time we spoke, every time we connected, I felt drained afterward. I felt heavy. I felt unclear. Something in my spirit always felt unsettled. But because of history, because of loyalty, because of fear of hurting them, I held on. Until one day I realized something simple but powerful. My peace was lowered every time they walked into my life, and I had to ask myself a question you may need to ask too. If something lowers my peace every time, why am I still keeping it close? I finally understood that protecting my peace was not about being selfish, it was about being spiritually responsible. So I quietly created distance. I didn't fight, I didn't argue, I didn't blame. I just let a natural gap form. And within 3 days I felt lighter, I felt clearer, I felt like my mind finally had room to breathe. That experience taught me something unexpected. Sometimes the greatest act of self-love is the quiet exit. Here's another example. Maybe this one will resonate with you in a different way. Have you ever accomplished something big, something you thought would finally bring joy, and instead you felt nothing? That emptiness afterwards isn't failure. It's a sign that you were chasing validation, not alignment. Peace doesn't come from applause. It doesn't come from being admired. It doesn't come from being noticed. Peace comes from being true to who God designed you to be. You can succeed and still be spiritually starving. You can be praised and still be internally restless. You can be surrounded and still be spiritually lonely. Peace comes when your inner world is no longer fighting itself. One more example, and this one is very common. The overthinking mind. Have you ever spent nights thinking about conversations over and over? Thinking about what someone meant? Thinking about the future until it scared you? Thinking about what could go wrong until nothing felt right? You know what I learned? Overthinking is the mind trying to control what the soul needs to surrender. Peace enters when you stop trying to manage everything, when you stop rehearsing pain, when you stop tight-holding outcomes, when you stop forcing moments to make sense. So how do we actually build peace? Let me give you practical solutions, real ones you can start today. First, practice selective attention. Not everything deserves your focus. Not every argument is worth engaging. Not every invitation needs acceptance. Peace grows when attention shrinks. Second, unplug from overstimulation. Your soul is not designed for constant noise. Silence is not uncomfortable, it is medicinal. Spend even 5 minutes in silence daily and watch your spirit reset. Third, remove emotional thieves. If someone causes confusion more than clarity, distance is not disrespect, it is self-preservation. Fourth, simplify decisions. Most people's stress comes not from the big things, but from the 1,000 tiny decisions they haven't made. Create clarity, choose, and move. Fifth, create spiritual boundaries. Not every spiritual battle is yours. Protect your energy, protect your mind, protect your emotional doorway. And finally, surrender small burdens quickly. Don't hold everything for days. Give things to God the moment you feel them weighing you down. Peace is not the absence of noise. Peace is the ability to remain centered even when noise exists. And here's the deepest truth. Peace is not found. Peace is built. Piece by piece. Choice by choice. Boundary by boundary. Moment by moment. If you learn this early, you save yourself years of unnecessary internal battles. You deserve peace. You were created for peace, and your spirit cannot function properly without it. This is the first truth I wished I had known sooner, and it alone can change the entire direction of your life. In the next section, we will go deeper into understanding people, spiritual seasons, emotional transitions, and why some connections cannot survive the next version of you. But before we move on, take a breath, reflect for a moment, and allow these words to settle in your spirit. This is just the beginning. Let's continue. And for this next part, I want you to really slow down with me. Breathe, settle, because what we're about to talk about is something that affects every single person, no matter their age, background, or spiritual journey. It's one of the hardest truths to accept, but it's also one of the most freeing once you finally understand it. Here's the truth. Not everyone in your life is meant to stay. Some people, no matter how deeply you love them, how much you invest in them, how strongly you feel connected to them, are only meant to walk with you for a season, not a lifetime. This truth is not meant to discourage you. It's meant to liberate you. For so long, I held on to people out of fear of loneliness, fear of misunderstanding, fear of change, fear of hurting someone, fear of starting over. But when I look back now, I realize I wasn't holding on because of love. I was holding on because of attachment. Love allows flow. Attachment grips tightly. And attachment is what causes pain when God tries to remove someone from your journey. Think about it for a moment. Look back at the relationships that fell apart in your life. Friendships you thought would last forever. People you thought you couldn't live without. Connections that felt like destiny but somehow ended quietly, slowly, or painfully. Where are those people now? Did life end when they left? No. Are you still breathing? Yes. Did you grow because of that loss? Absolutely. Sometimes people don't leave your life because everything went wrong. Sometimes they leave because their part in your story has been fulfilled. They taught you something, maybe courage, maybe patience, maybe boundaries, maybe humility, maybe discernment. They shaped you for a chapter, not the whole book. Let me give you a very personal example. There was someone in my life that I believed wholeheartedly would be in my story forever. We had history. We had deep emotional connection. We had dreams we talked about. We had memories that felt permanent. And because of that, I fought for the relationship long after peace disappeared. I kept explaining myself. I kept giving chances. I kept tolerating behavior that drained me. I kept adjusting my boundaries just to keep them close. But something inside me always felt off, a quiet discomfort, a sense of imbalance, an uneasy spiritual feeling I couldn't ignore forever. One day, during a simple conversation, they said something that finally opened my eyes. It wasn't an insult. It wasn't disrespectful. It was just revealing. It showed me how differently we saw life, how differently we valued connection, and how differently we walked spiritually. And suddenly, without anger, without drama, without a big fight, I realized we were walking in two different directions, and I was the only one trying to pretend we weren't. And that was the day I let go. It wasn't a dramatic goodbye. It wasn't a moment of bitterness. It was simply the quiet acceptance that some people are not meant to evolve with you, and that's okay. A strange thing happened after that. I felt grief at first because loss always carries grief. But underneath that grief, almost hidden, was relief. Not relief that they were gone, but relief that I finally stopped fighting a chapter that God had already closed. This is what I want you to understand. When God removes someone, it's never random. You may not see it now, but there is always a purpose behind the transition. Let me give you an example you might relate to. Imagine a friend you once trusted with everything. You shared dreams, secrets, pain, victories, but over time something shifted. Conversations started feeling different. Their jokes felt more like subtle jabs. Their support felt inconsistent. Their presence felt heavier than their absence. You didn't want to admit it, but you could feel your energy drop around them. Maybe you tried harder. Maybe you lowered your boundaries. Maybe you held on tighter. But the truth is, something in your spirit already knew. The season was ending. Relationships rarely end suddenly. They fade. They quiet. They loosen. Because endings are transitions, not always explosions. Or maybe you've had a relationship, romantic or otherwise, that felt powerful at the beginning. Deep, soulful, intense. You told yourself, this must be God. You imagined a future with them. You built your hopes around them. But slowly, gaps formed, cracks appeared, misunderstandings became patterns, emotional safety became inconsistent, and instead of partnership, you began to feel drained. You thought it was your fault. You tried harder. You apologized more. You over-explained. You worked to keep the connection alive. But the more you invested, the more distant they became. Why? Because their role in your life was never meant to be permanent, and your spirit knew it long before your mind could accept it. Let me tell you something important. People leaving your life is not always loss. Sometimes it's alignment. Sometimes it's preparation. Sometimes it's protection. Some people you prayed to keep would have destroyed the future you're praying to build. Some people you begged for would have slowed down your growth. Some people you trusted deeply would have broken you at a stage when you wouldn't have recovered as easily. Sometimes God protects your destiny by removing what your emotions are trying to hold on to. Let me give you a deeper understanding with a simple metaphor. Imagine your life is an airplane taking off. Different elevations require different weight limits. Some people fit on the runway. Some people fit during taxi. Some people fit during ascent. But very few people are allowed at cruising altitude. Your next level cannot hold everyone from your current level. That's not rejection, that's spiritual economy. So, how do you know when someone's season is ending? Let me give you the signs. Your spirit becomes unsettled around them. You feel heavier after interacting with them, not lighter. They no longer celebrate your growth, it threatens them. Conversations become surface level because deeper connection is fading. You feel yourself shrinking to maintain the relationship. There is more confusion than clarity, more effort than flow, more anxiety than peace, more forcing than alignment. When God is shifting someone out of your life, He usually begins by shifting your spirit first. Now let's talk about healing. Because recognizing a season is over is one thing, accepting it is another. Healing requires grace not just for the other person, but for yourself. Here are solutions that help you navigate relational transitions wisely. First, allow yourself to grieve. Losing someone, even someone who wasn't good for your growth, still hurts. Don't rush the sadness. Grief is not a sign of weakness. It is a sign of meaning. Second, release the story you created about the person. Sometimes we get attached to the potential of who someone could be, not the reality of who they are. Let go of the fantasy. Accept the truth. Third, stop replaying the what-ifs. The mind will replay memories when the heart is hurting. But what if scenarios delay healing? Trust the timing. Trust the ending. Fourth, practice emotional detachment. Not coldness, not bitterness, not anger. Just acceptance is the bridge between pain and peace. Fifth, refocus on yourself. Every ending creates space for a new beginning. Fill that space with growth, rest, reflection, new habits, new insights, and new identity. And finally, understand this deeply. A closed door is not rejection. A closed door is redirection. A closed door is protection you don't recognize yet. You do not lose people. You release people. And the right people, the aligned people, the purposeful people, they don't need to be held onto. They stay on their own. In time, you will look back at every person who left and say, I didn't lose anything. I gained clarity. I gained wisdom. I gained strength. I gained myself. Take a moment. Let that sink into your heart. Because this truth is one of the most freeing truths you will ever learn. And when you accept it, you stop fighting for people who don't fight for you. You stop chasing people who don't choose you. You stop begging for what was never your blessing. You stop apologizing for outgrowing people who never planned to grow with you. Your journey continues. Your story expands. Your circle evolves. And every person meant for your destiny will always recognize your spirit. This truth has healed countless hearts. It will heal yours too. Let's keep going. Take a breath again. Settle into yourself, and let's go deeper than we have so far, because this next truth is one of the most powerful, most transformative, and most painfully honest truths I've ever learned. You are not living the life you desire. You are living the life you believe you deserve. That truth alone could change someone's entire destiny if they truly understood it, not in their mind, but in their spirit. We all desire things. We desire love. We desire success. We desire respect. We desire opportunity. We desire clarity, peace, breakthroughs, purpose, recognition, healing. Desire is natural. Desire is human. Desire is part of hope, part of prayer, part of vision. But here's the spiritual twist. Life doesn't respond to your desires. Life responds to your expectations and your beliefs. You can desire something deeply, but if your internal belief says, I'm not worthy of this, your behavior will sabotage it. Your energy will repel it. Your decisions will interfere with it, and your patterns will distort it. Your belief is the gatekeeper of your blessings. Let me tell you a story. Years ago, I wanted a better life, truly wanted it. I dreamed of being more stable, more confident, more grounded, more fulfilled. But whenever opportunities came, I found myself hesitating. I felt anxious. I felt undeserving. I felt like I wasn't ready, or I wasn't skilled enough, or I would disappoint someone. I would pray for open doors, but emotionally panic the moment those doors opened. I would ask God for better, but deep down, I didn't believe I was worthy of better. So every blessing He sent, I pushed away without even realizing it. Have you ever done that? Maybe someone came into your life that genuinely valued you, and instead of receiving it, you questioned it. Maybe you got an opportunity, and instead of stepping into it, you delayed it or doubted yourself. Maybe life tried to elevate you, and instead of rising, you shrank. Not because you didn't desire growth, but because your inner belief system didn't support it. There's a difference between wanting something and believing you can hold it. Let me give you a simple image. Imagine your life is a cup. Desire fills the cup with water, but belief determines the size of the cup. If your belief is small, the blessings overflowing will not stay. They spill, they slip away. You spill opportunities, connections, breakthroughs, and favor because the container of your belief cannot hold them. Another example. Think about a person who desires love, but deep down believes, people always leave me. No matter how loving a partner is, they will subconsciously push them away because their belief does not match their desire. Or someone who desires abundance but deep down believes, I'll always struggle like my family did. They might get money, but they won't be able to sustain it. Their mindset will sabotage it. Or someone who desires respect but believes, I'm not enough. They will tolerate mistreatment. They will shrink themselves. They will silence their voice. Belief shapes behavior shapes patterns shape your life. Let me give you a deeper example, one that might hit closer to home. There are people who desire healthy love but accept unhealthy treatment because their belief system whispers, this is the best you can get. There are people who desire stability but cling to unstable situations because their belief system whispers, you don't deserve more. There are people who desire big achievements but procrastinate or self-sabotage because their belief system whispers, you might fail. Your belief system doesn't yell, it whispers, and those whispers are powerful. So the real question is not what do you desire? The real question is, what do you truly believe you deserve? Let's explore this deeply. If you grew up around criticism, you might believe love must be earned. If you grew up around chaos, you might believe peace is unrealistic. If you grew up around scarcity, you might believe abundance is suspicious. If you grew up around rejection, you might believe acceptance is temporary. If you grew up around instability, you might believe good things don't last. And if these beliefs went unchallenged for years, they became your default settings. So even when life tries to give you more, you unconsciously resist it. Let me give you a painful, honest example. There was a time in my life when I kept attracting people who didn't value me, and for the longest time I blamed them. I told myself, why do people treat me this way? But then, one day, after deep reflection, I realized something uncomfortable. They weren't choosing me, I was choosing them. My belief system was choosing them for me. I believed I had to earn love. I believed I wasn't enough as I was. I believed I had to overgive to be chosen. I believed my worth was measured by how useful I was to others. So naturally, I attracted relationships where I had to overextend myself, because your life always mirrors your self-belief. Let me give you another example with career and purpose. For years, I prayed for opportunities. I wanted breakthrough. I wanted elevation. I wanted expansion. But every time an opportunity came, even small ones, I felt terrified. I doubted myself. I hesitated. I told myself I wasn't ready. And one day it hit me. I wasn't waiting on the opportunity was waiting on me to believe in myself. Life doesn't respond to, I want this. Life responds to, I am ready for this. So how do we transform belief? How do we shift our internal settings? How do we expand our capacity to receive? Let me walk you through practical solutions. First, identify your limiting beliefs. Everything you believe about yourself came from somewhere: your childhood, your past relationships, your failures, your environment. You cannot change what you do not acknowledge. Second, separate belief from identity. Just because you believe something doesn't make it true. I'm not worthy is a belief, not a fact. I'm not enough is a belief, not a truth. Third, replace the belief with a new declaration. This isn't about positive thinking. This is about spiritual realignment. Your spirit needs new language. Instead of saying, I'm always rejected, shift to, I am worthy of stable love. Instead of saying, I always struggle, shift to, I am open to abundance. Instead of saying, I'm afraid to fail, shift to, I learn and grow with every step. Fourth, act according to what you wish to believe, not what you currently feel. This is powerful. Alignment comes from action. If you want to believe you're worthy of love, set boundaries that protect that worthiness. If you want to believe you're capable, take small actions that build confidence. Fifth, surround yourself with people who reflect your future, not your past.
Your environment either reinforces your old beliefs or strengthens your new ones. Sixth, practice receiving. Many people pray for blessings but feel uncomfortable when someone compliments them, helps them, supports them, or offers them kindness. If you cannot receive small things, you won't be able to receive big things. And finally, seventh, ask God to heal the root of the belief, not just the symptoms. Most limiting beliefs come from wounds, emotional wounds, spiritual wounds, relational wounds. Healing the wound transforms the belief naturally. If you heal insecurity, confidence appears. If you heal abandonment, trust appears. If you heal unworthiness, abundance appears. If you heal heartbreak, love becomes possible again. Belief is not a mindset problem, it is a heart problem. And a healed heart believes differently. Now let this settle in your spirit for a moment. You are not waiting on life is waiting on your belief. You are not waiting on blessings are waiting on your capacity to receive them. When you raise your belief, everything else rises with it. Let's continue, and I want you to gently settle into this next truth, because almost everyone experiences it, but very few people understand it. There will come a time in your life when God seems to pull you away from everything and everyone. A time where conversations feel different, friendships fade, relationships shift, your social energy drops, and your heart becomes quieter than usual. A time when it feels like you're standing alone in a room that used to be full. And during seasons like that, the first thought most people have is, why is this happening to me? What did I do wrong? Why does it feel like everyone is drifting away? Why do I feel so disconnected? But what I didn't understand back then, and maybe what you haven't fully understood yet, is that isolation is not punishment. It is preparation. There is a kind of loneliness that comes from losing people, but there is another kind of loneliness that comes from God pulling you closer. Let me tell you a story. There was a season in my life when I felt spiritually dry. Nothing made sense. I felt disconnected from people I once trusted, uninterested in environments I used to love, and I didn't know why. I wasn't sad. I wasn't angry. I wasn't depressed. I was just quiet inside. And because I didn't understand it, I fought it. I tried to force social connections. I tried to revive friendships that were clearly fading. I tried to convince myself I was the same person I used to be. But here's something important to know. Your spirit always evolves before your relationships do. So while I was trying to hold on to old versions of my life, God was trying to prepare me for a new one. There came a night, and maybe you've had a night like this, where I sat alone and realized I wasn't lonely. I was transitioning. People weren't disappearing because something was wrong. They were disappearing because something was being aligned. And I learned that when God isolates you, He is not taking people away. He is taking noise away. Noise from expectations. Noise from influence. Noise from pressure. Noise from distractions. Noise from emotional clutter. Noise from the world drowning out your own voice. In isolation, God gives you something priceless: clarity. Let me give you a relatable example. Think about your phone. If you're standing in a crowded, loud place, a market, a stadium, a busy street, and someone calls you, the signal gets weak. You can't hear clearly. You can't make out the words. You're trying to talk, but the noise is too loud. But if you step into a quiet corner, suddenly the connection becomes clear. That's what isolation is. It is God pulling your spirit into a quieter place so the signal can strengthen. Now let's go deeper. Isolation also exposes things you were too busy to notice. When life is loud, you don't see your own patterns. When life is loud, you don't notice unhealthy attachments. When life is loud, you ignore your own emotional exhaustion. When life is loud, you miss the small red flags that matter. When life is loud, you stop hearing God's direction. Isolation brings everything back into focus. Let me share another example. Maybe this one mirrors your own story. There was someone in my life who I thought I couldn't live without. Our connection was strong, our conversations frequent, our relationship comfortable. But during a season of isolation, when God pulled me inward, I realized something I couldn't see before.
I was losing myself trying to hold that bond together. I realized the relationship wasn't built on growth anymore. It was built on familiarity, and familiarity can sometimes blind you to truth. In isolation, my spirit became honest with me. It showed me what wasn't aligned. It showed me what I had been ignoring. It showed me where I was shrinking myself. It showed me what needed to be released. Isolation teaches you the truth nobody around you had the courage to tell you. Another example. Have you ever felt tired, not physically, but spiritually? That quiet exhaustion where nothing is wrong, but nothing feels right either. Where you're functioning, but not flourishing. That is usually the beginning of a divine isolation season. It's God saying, come away for a moment. Let me restore you. Let me refill you. Let me heal what you haven't noticed. Let me prepare you for the next chapter. Sometimes isolation is simply God giving you time to breathe again. Now let's talk about preparation, because isolation is not only about separation, it's also about becoming. Preparation can look like strengthening your character, sharpening your discernment, teaching you boundaries, revealing your true calling, healing your emotional wounds, destroying cycles that run in your family, rebuilding your identity, deepening your connection with God, preparing you for relationships that require a healed version of you, preparing you for opportunities the old you couldn't handle. Preparation requires space. Preparation requires quiet. Preparation requires solitude. Imagine trying to build a house in the middle of a busy intersection. Impossible. Construction requires a cleared space. Your spirit is the same way. To rebuild you, God clears space. Now, let's talk about emotional experience, because isolation is not just spiritual, it's emotional. Isolation feels uncomfortable at first. You feel detached from your old life, but you're not yet connected to your new one. It feels like standing between two doors, one that has closed and one that has not opened yet. This in-between space is sacred. This is where growth happens. This is where identity is reborn. This is where purpose is revealed. But it also feels lonely sometimes. So here are the emotional stages you may experience. 1. Confusion. Why don't I connect the same anymore? 2. Withdrawn feeling. I want to be alone, but I don't know why. 3. Loss of interest. Things that once entertained you don't anymore. 4. Heightened awareness. You start noticing things you didn't notice before. 5. Clarity. The way I've been living doesn't match who I'm becoming. 6. Alignment. You begin acting from purpose instead of habit. 7. Rebirth. You emerge as a more grounded, more confident, more spiritually aware version of yourself. Now, let me give you practical solutions for navigating isolation wisely. First, don't panic. Nothing is wrong with you. You are evolving. Spiritual isolation feels like emptiness before it feels like transformation. Second, listen more than you speak. Your spirit will tell you things you've been too busy to hear. Third, journal your thoughts. Isolation reveals patterns. Writing helps you capture them. Fourth, ask God questions. Not, why is this happening? But, what are you teaching me in this? Fifth, release what feels forced. Anything you must constantly push to maintain is not aligned. Sixth, embrace quiet spaces. Your next chapter requires focus, not noise. Seventh, practice surrender. Trust the process without needing to control it. Eighth, allow your identity to shift. Isolation is where the old you dissolves and the new you emerges. And finally, ninth, know that isolation is temporary. God is not pulling you away forever. He is preparing you to re-enter life wiser, stronger, and more deeply rooted. You will not stay isolated. You will not stay in this in-between season. You are simply being prepared for a chapter that requires a different version of you, more powerful, more resilient, more grounded. You are not losing people. You are losing distractions. You are not losing connections. You are losing attachments that no longer fit your destiny. You are not alone. You are being rebuilt. Take a breath. Let that truth sink in. This part of your journey is not punishment, it is preparation. Let's continue, and I want you to gently settle into this next truth, because almost everyone experiences it, but very few people understand it. There will come a time in your life when God seems to pull you away from everything and everyone. A time where conversations feel different, friendships fade, Relationships shift, your social energy drops, and your heart becomes quieter than usual. A time when it feels like you're standing alone in a room that used to be full. And during seasons like that, the first thought most people have is, why is this happening to me? What did I do wrong? Why does it feel like everyone is drifting away? Why do I feel so disconnected? But what I didn't understand back then, and maybe what you haven't fully understood yet, is that isolation is not punishment. It is preparation. There is a kind of loneliness that comes from losing people, but there is another kind of loneliness that comes from God pulling you closer. Let me tell you a story. There was a season in my life when I felt spiritually dry. Nothing made sense. I felt disconnected from people I once trusted, uninterested in environments I used to love, and I didn't know why. I wasn't sad, I wasn't angry, I wasn't depressed, I was just quiet inside. And because I didn't understand it, I fought it. I tried to force social connections. I tried to revive friendships that were clearly fading. I tried to convince myself I was the same person I used to be. But here's something important to know. Your spirit always evolves before your relationships do. So while I was trying to hold on to old versions of my life, God was trying to prepare me for a new one. There came a night, and maybe you've had a night like this where I sat alone and realized I wasn't lonely. I was transitioning. People weren't disappearing because something was wrong. They were disappearing because something was being aligned. And I learned that when God isolates you, He is not taking people away. He is taking noise away. Noise from expectations, noise from influence, noise from pressure, noise from distractions, noise from emotional clutter, noise from the world drowning out your own voice. In isolation, God gives you something priceless: clarity. Let me give you a relatable example. Think about your phone. If you're standing in a crowded, loud place, a market, a stadium, a busy street, and someone calls you, the signal gets weak. You can't hear clearly. You can't make out the words. You're trying to talk, but the noise is too loud. But if you step into a quiet corner, suddenly the connection becomes clear. That's what isolation is. It is God pulling your spirit into a quieter place so the signal can strengthen. Now, let's go deeper. Isolation also exposes things you are too busy to notice. When life is loud, you don't see your own patterns. When life is loud, you don't notice unhealthy attachments. When life is loud, you ignore your own emotional exhaustion. When life is loud, you miss the small red flags that matter. When life is loud, you stop hearing God's direction. Isolation brings everything back into focus. Let me share another example. Maybe this one mirrors your own story. There was someone in my life who I thought I couldn't live without. Our connection was strong, our conversations frequent, our relationship comfortable. But during a season of isolation when God pulled me inward, I realized something I couldn't see before. I was losing myself trying to hold that bond together. I realized the relationship wasn't built on growth anymore. It was built on familiarity. And familiarity can sometimes blind you to truth. In isolation, my spirit became honest with me. It showed me what wasn't aligned. It showed me what I had been ignoring. It showed me where I was shrinking myself. It showed me what needed to be released. Isolation teaches you the truth nobody around you had the courage to tell you. Another example. Have you ever felt tired, not physically, but spiritually? That quiet exhaustion where nothing is wrong, but nothing feels right either? Where you're functioning, but not flourishing? That is usually the beginning of a divine isolation season. It's God saying, come away for a moment. Let me restore you. Let me refill you. Let me heal what you haven't noticed. Let me prepare you for the next chapter. Sometimes isolation is simply God giving you time to breathe again. Now let's talk about preparation, because isolation is not only about separation, it's also about becoming. Preparation can look like strengthening your character, sharpening your discernment, teaching you boundaries, revealing your true calling, healing your emotional wounds, destroying cycles that run in your family, rebuilding your identity, deepening your connection with God, preparing you for relationships that require a healed version of you, preparing you for opportunities the old you couldn't handle. Preparation requires space. Preparation requires quiet. Preparation requires solitude. Imagine trying to build a house in the middle of a busy intersection. Impossible. Construction requires a cleared space. Your spirit is the same way. To rebuild you, God clears space. Now, let's talk about emotional experience, because isolation is not just spiritual, it's emotional. Isolation feels uncomfortable at first. You feel detached from your old life, but you're not yet connected to your new one. It feels like standing between two doors, one that has closed and one that has not opened yet. This in-between space is sacred. This is where growth happens. This is where identity is reborn. This is where purpose is revealed. But it also feels lonely sometimes. So here are the emotional stages you may experience. 1. Confusion. Why don't I connect the same anymore? 2. Withdrawn feeling. I want to be alone, but I don't know why. 3. Loss of interest. Things that once entertained you don't anymore. 4. Heightened awareness. You start noticing things you didn't notice before. 5. Clarity. The way I've been living doesn't match who I'm becoming. 6. Alignment. You begin acting from purpose instead of habit. 7. Rebirth. You emerge as a more grounded, more confident, more spiritually aware version of yourself. Now, let me give you practical solutions for navigating isolation wisely. First, don't panic. Nothing is wrong with you. You are evolving. Spiritual isolation feels like emptiness before it feels like transformation. Second, listen more than you speak. Your spirit will tell you things you've been too busy to hear. Third, journal your thoughts. Isolation reveals patterns. Writing helps you capture them. Fourth, ask God questions. Not, why is this happening? But, what are you teaching me in this? Fifth, release what feels forced. Anything you must constantly push to maintain is not aligned. Sixth, embrace quiet spaces. Your next chapter requires focus, not noise. Seventh, practice surrender. Trust the process without needing to control it. Eighth, allow your identity to shift. Isolation is where the old you dissolves and the new you emerges. And finally, ninth, know that isolation is temporary. God is not pulling you away forever. He is preparing you to re-enter life wiser, stronger, and more deeply rooted. You will not stay isolated. You will not stay in this in-between season. You are simply being prepared for a chapter that requires a different version of you, a more powerful, more resilient, more grounded you. You are not losing people. You are losing distractions. You are not losing connections. You are losing attachments that no longer fit your destiny. You are not alone. You are being rebuilt. Take a breath. Let that truth sink in. This part of your journey is not punishment. It is preparation. Let's continue. And as we go into this next truth, I want you to take a deep breath and soften your shoulders a bit. Because sometimes the things we're about to learn touch sensitive areas inside us, places where we've carried disappointment, confusion, or even quiet frustration with life. This truth is simple, but it can change everything about how you see your journey. A delay is not a denial. A delay is protection. There were times in my life when I begged for something to happen sooner. A dream to open up, a relationship to work out, an opportunity to expand, a plan to go right. And every time it didn't happen when I wanted it to, I would feel hurt, confused, even abandoned by the timing of life. But later, sometimes years later, I would look back and say, if that had happened when I asked for it, it would have broken me. Let me tell you a story. There was an opportunity I wanted more than anything. It was big, it was exciting, and it felt like the breakthrough I had been waiting for. I prepared my heart for it. I imagined the future. I prayed, I applied, I positioned myself, and I waited with full expectation. Then suddenly, nothing. No call, no email, no response, no explanation. I felt like the ground fell from underneath me. I questioned myself. I questioned my worth. I questioned whether I heard God correctly. I questioned whether I was even on the right path. Weeks went by, then months, then life moved forward. And here's the twist. The very opportunity I begged for collapsed a short time later. Financial problems, leadership problems, internal issues, people leaving, promises broken. If I had stepped into it when I wanted to, I would have tied my future to something that had no stability. I didn't see the danger at the time.
I saw excitement. I saw potential. I saw what I wanted. But God saw the whole picture and He closed the door. From the outside it looked like a delay. From the inside it was protection. Let me ask you, has there ever been something you wanted so badly, and when you didn't get it, you felt crushed only to realize later that it would have harmed you? A relationship, a job, a partnership, a decision, a move, a friendship, an opportunity. That's the divine nature of delays. You don't understand them while they're happening. But when wisdom catches up, you realize the timing wasn't late, it was perfect. Let me give you another example. Someone once shared with me that they prayed for a relationship to work, prayed with everything in them. They tried, they apologized, they sacrificed, they stayed even when it hurt. But the relationship kept falling apart. It felt like no matter how much effort they poured into it, something always got in the way.
At the time, they believed the delay was rejection. But years later, they saw it differently. That person they were fighting so hard for ended up living a life full of instability, dishonesty, and irresponsibility. Had the relationship worked when they prayed for it, their future would have been tied to chaos. Sometimes God delays a relationship because the person isn't growing. Sometimes He delays it because you aren't ready. Sometimes He delays it because the love you wanted was too small for the destiny He sees in you. Another example, a deeply emotional one. There was someone who wanted to move to another country desperately. They applied for visas multiple times. Every time, the applications were denied. Every time, hope got smaller. Every time, they felt like they were falling behind in life. 3 years later, political issues erupted in that country. People lost jobs. People struggled financially. People experienced unsafe situations. The delayed approval wasn't a denial, it was protection. You see, delay is one of God's most misunderstood blessings. When you're in the middle of it, delays feel like pain. Delays feel like failure. Delays feel like being forgotten. Delays feel like prayers not being heard. Delays feel like stagnation. But spiritually, delays are often the bridge between who you are and who you need to become. Delays are alignment. Let me break it down even deeper. Sometimes God delays things because the blessing is ready, but you are not. You might still be healing. You might still be maturing. You might still be releasing old attachments. You might still be breaking old habits. You might still be growing into the version of yourself who can handle what you're praying for. Sometimes God delays things because you are ready, but the blessing is not yet prepared. The right person hasn't healed yet. The right job hasn't opened yet. The right opportunity hasn't matured yet. The right environment hasn't been formed yet. Sometimes God delays things because your current environment cannot support your next season. A flower cannot bloom in every soil. A dream cannot flourish in every atmosphere. Sometimes God delays because if He gave it now, it would overwhelm you. Blessings require responsibility. Blessings require emotional stability. Blessings require preparedness. Blessings require clarity. We want the blessing, but we forget the blessing also requires management. Let me give you a personal example that speaks to this. There was a point in my life when I asked for more opportunity, more visibility, more financial growth, more influence. I felt ready, or at least I thought I was. But looking back now, I realize something painful and honest. My maturity at that time couldn't have carried the weight of the blessing I wanted. If things had opened too fast, I would have broken under pressure. If success came too easily, I would have lost myself in it. If doors had opened too soon, I would have walked in unprepared. God wasn't saying no. He was saying, I'm developing the version of you who can handle what you're asking for. Delay is development. Let me share something that may comfort your heart right now. Nothing meant for you will ever be delayed into disappearance. Nothing aligned with your destiny will slip away. Nothing carrying your name will be taken by anyone else. No opportunity designed for your purpose will be stolen. Delay does not cancel destiny. Delay prepares destiny. Now let's talk about the emotional side of delays because this part is real. Delays trigger insecurity. Delays trigger comparison.
Delays trigger impatience. Delays trigger doubt. Delays trigger overthinking. But delays also expose something important, where your faith truly stands. Anyone can say, "I trust God," when everything is happening fast, but true trust is built in the slow seasons. So let me give you the practical solutions for navigating delays with wisdom and emotional strength. First, stop assuming a delay means you did something wrong. It might mean you did everything right and life is aligning behind the scenes. Second, shift your question. Instead of asking, "Why is this taking so long?" ask, "What is this season preparing me for?" Third, reflect on what you need to grow. Delays often highlight areas that require strengthening: patience, confidence, boundaries, discipline, self-worth. Fourth, focus on progress, not timing. Even small steps count. Even slow healing counts. Even quiet changes matter. Fifth, don't force what is not flowing. Anything forced is out of alignment. Sixth, strengthen your foundation. Use the delay to become more emotionally stable, spiritually grounded, and mentally prepared. Seventh, trust the unseen. Just because you can't see movement doesn't mean God isn't moving. And here is the final, powerful truth about delays. When God finally opens the door, it will make sense why it took so long. Every disappointment will connect into a bigger story. Every detour will reveal its purpose. Every closed door will show its protection, and every delay will prove that you weren't waiting, you were growing. Let's continue, because the next truth is one of the most life-changing realizations you will ever have. And if you truly understand this one, not intellectually but spiritually, it will protect you from years of unnecessary pain. Your spirit knows before your mind understands. This means that long before logic catches up, long before the signs become obvious, long before you can explain what you feel, your spirit already knows the truth. Call it intuition. Call it discernment. Call it a gut feeling. Call it inner knowing.
Call it spiritual sensitivity. But whatever you call it, it is real. And it is one of the greatest gifts God placed inside you. Let me begin with a story. It's a story that I'm sure you will relate to in your own way. There was a moment in my life when I met someone who seemed perfect, kind, attentive, charming, engaging. Everything on the surface looked right. In my mind, it made sense to trust them. They had good qualities, good intentions, or so it appeared. But every time I walked away from a conversation with them, there was this quiet feeling in the back of my spirit. Something small, gentle, but very real. Not fear, not dislike, just a whisper that said, "Something is not right." But because I had no evidence, because I couldn't point to anything specific, I ignored it. I told myself I was being paranoid. I told myself I was overthinking. I told myself I was judging too quickly. Weeks turned into months. The connection deepened. The relationship grew. Everything looked good from the outside. But the whisper didn't stop, and eventually something happened. The truth was revealed. Something they hid came to light, and suddenly everything made sense. I didn't understand it at first, but my spirit knew all along. Has that ever happened to you? A person you trusted, but your spirit quietly warned you. A job you accepted, but something felt off the moment you walked in. A decision you made, but your body felt tense the entire time. A friendship you kept, even though your instincts knew the bond was shifting. A place you visited, but your energy changed the moment you entered. A conversation that made you uneasy, even though the words were polite. A smile that didn't feel genuine. A situation that looked harmless but made your heart feel heavy. Your spirit speaks through feeling long before your mind speaks through logic. Let me give you a very simple example. Imagine you're walking down a street you've walked 1,000 times. But today, for some reason, your spirit feels alert. You don't see danger. You don't hear anything unusual. Nothing looks wrong. But you feel something, and because you feel it, you adjust. You walk faster. You change direction. You choose a different path. Later, you find out something unsafe happened in that area. Your spirit warned you long before your mind could explain why. Here's another example. This one is emotional. You're talking to someone, and on the surface, everything sounds normal. They're saying the right words. They're smiling. They seem calm. but something in you feels unsettled. Their tone doesn't match their words. Their energy doesn't match their actions. You don't know why, but something feels off. That's your spirit detecting what your mind has not yet processed. Your spirit picks up on what is unspoken. Your spirit sees what your eyes cannot. Your spirit hears what your ears miss. Your spirit understands what your mind would take months to figure out. Let me say something important here. Your spirit is never confused. Your mind is. Your emotions are. Your fears are. But your spirit, your spiritual instinct is direct, quiet, consistent, and deeply rooted. The problem is we often talk ourselves out of what we spiritually know. Think about it. How many times have you said, "I knew something was wrong. I should have trusted my intuition. I ignored the signs. Something told me. My gut warned me. I felt it, but I didn't listen." Almost everyone has had those moments. So let's explore why we ignore our spirit. We want to give people the benefit of the doubt. We want to avoid conflict. We want to avoid seeming judgmental. We want something to work so badly that we override the warning signs. We don't want to accept the truth. We're afraid of what listening to our spirit might require: change, boundaries, endings, confrontation, honesty. Sometimes we don't ignore intuition because we don't trust it. We ignore it because we're not ready for what it is revealing. Let me give you a deeper example, one that might mirror one of your relationships. Imagine someone you care about deeply, maybe a friend, maybe a partner, maybe someone you admire, and suddenly your spirit begins to feel distant around them. You can't explain it. Nothing specific happened, but something inside you knows the alignment is shifting. You tell yourself you're imagining it. You tell yourself you're being dramatic. You tell yourself everything is fine, but your spirit keeps saying, "Pay attention." And then one day, truth reveals itself, not because you discovered it, but because your spirit sensed it long before any evidence appeared. Your spirit doesn't warn you to scare you. Your spirit warns you to protect you. Let me give you a more positive example, because intuition doesn't only warn us, it also guides us. There are people you meet and instantly feel safe around. You don't know why, you just do. There are opportunities that feel right the moment they appear. There are decisions that bring peace even before you fully understand them. There are paths that feel aligned even though they're unfamiliar. Your mind may still be catching up, but your spirit whispers, "This is right, this is good, this is safe, this is aligned." Your spirit recognizes blessings the same way it recognizes danger. Now let's talk about how intuition, spiritual knowing, shows up physically. It shows up as tightness in your chest. It shows up as a knot in your stomach. It shows up as a heavy feeling when someone enters the room. It shows up as tension when someone speaks. It shows up as discomfort in conversations that seem normal. It shows up as calmness when something is right. It shows up as peace around the right people. It shows up as softness in your body when alignment is present. Your spirit speaks through your body before your mind forms a thought. Let me give you the clearest way to understand this. Your mind processes information. Your spirit perceives truth. Now let's get into the practical side, how to strengthen this spiritual gift. First, listen to your first feeling. The first feeling comes from intuition. The second feeling often comes from fear or doubt. The first is truth. The second is analysis. Second, stop explaining away your discomfort. If something feels off, even if it looks fine, honor the feeling. Third, pay attention to patterns. Your spirit rarely gives warnings once. It repeats the message. Fourth, ask yourself the right questions. How did this interaction make me feel? What changed in my energy? What is my spirit refusing to ignore? Fifth, trust calmness. If something brings peace, even without explanation, it is usually aligned. Sixth, trust tension. If something brings discomfort, even without explanation, it is usually misaligned. Seventh, don't override your intuition for convenience. A lot of pain comes from ignoring early warnings. Eighth, pray for clarity, not signs. Clarity often arrives through intuition, not through dramatic signals. Ninth, spend time alone. Intuition needs quiet to grow. Noise blocks discernment.
10th, let intuition guide your pace. Sometimes God slows your spirit down for protection. Sometimes He speeds your spirit up for alignment. Let me give you the most powerful truth about intuition. Your spirit will never mislead you. It may confuse you at first, but it will never harm you. Your spirit always knows. Your mind simply needs time to catch up. So next time you feel something deeply, even if you can't explain it, honor it.
That feeling might be the very thing protecting your heart, guiding your path, or keeping you aligned with your destiny. Let's continue. And before we step into this next truth, I want you to take another breath with me. In and out. Because the truth we're about to explore is one that touches tender places inside the heart, places many of us avoid, suppress, or pretend no longer hurt. Forgiveness. It's one of the hardest spiritual tasks, one of the most misunderstood, one of the most avoided, and yet one of the most freeing experiences you will ever have. Let me begin with this simple statement. Forgiveness does not mean they were right. Forgiveness does not mean you forget what happened. Forgiveness does not mean you let them back into your life. Forgiveness does not mean everything returns to normal. Forgiveness simply means you are releasing yourself from carrying the weight of what they did. Forgiveness is not a gift to them. Forgiveness is freedom for you. Let me tell you a story. There was a person in my life who hurt me deeply, not physically, but emotionally. They said things that cut into places I didn't even know were sensitive. They broke trust I thought was unbreakable, and for a long time I carried the pain in silence. I didn't talk about it. I didn't express it. I didn't even fully acknowledge it, but inside I was holding on to it like a burning coal. Here's the thing about emotional wounds. You can hide them. You can ignore them. You can bury them, but they don't disappear. Buried pain becomes bitterness. Buried anger becomes heaviness. Buried betrayal becomes distrust. Buried sadness becomes numbness. Unforgiveness begins as a defense mechanism, but it transforms into a prison. And I found myself living inside that prison. Every time I remembered the situation, my body tightened. My heart would beat a little faster. My mind would replay conversations, imagining what I should have said. My energy would shift. My spirit felt heavy. And do you know what changed? Not the person who hurt me. I changed. I became less open, less trusting, less peaceful, less joyful. That's when I realized something powerful. Unforgiveness doesn't keep them in prison. It keeps you in prison. Let me give you a simple example to make this clearer. Imagine you're carrying a backpack filled with heavy rocks. Each rock represents a hurt, an offense, a betrayal, a disappointment. You carry it everywhere to work, into relationships, into conversations, even into your sleep. The person who put those rocks in your bag may not even think about you anymore, but you are still carrying what they threw at you. Forgiveness is taking those rocks out of your backpack one by one so you can walk lighter. Now let's go deeper. Sometimes the hardest person to forgive is not the one who hurt you the most, but the one you expected the most from. It hurts differently when the betrayal comes from someone you trusted with your vulnerability, someone you let close, someone you believed in, someone you opened your heart to. Forgiveness is especially difficult when you don't receive an apology, when the person never admits what they did, when they rewrite the story in their favor, when they play the victim, when they minimize your pain, when they act like nothing happened. But let me tell you something that might comfort your spirit. Your healing is not dependent on their apology. Your peace is not dependent on their honesty. Your freedom is not dependent on their understanding. Forgiveness is a decision you make to release your own soul regardless of what they do or don't do. I once heard someone say, "Forgiveness is accepting that the past cannot be any different." That sentence changed my life, because unforgiveness is often rooted in the desire to reverse the past. We replay the moment hoping the story will change. We imagine different responses, different outcomes. But none of that heals us. It keeps us trapped in the moment that broke us. Forgiveness is accepting the finality of what happened, so you can begin the process of becoming whole again. Let me give you another real-life example. There was a woman who held resentment against her father for decades. He wasn't abusive. He wasn't cruel.
He was simply absent, emotionally unavailable, distant, unreachable. She carried that wound into adulthood. It affected every relationship she entered. Every time someone pulled away even slightly, she panicked. Her fear of abandonment controlled her. One day someone told her, "You're carrying a burden he may not even be aware of. You're paying the price for a debt he doesn't even know he owes." That sentence shook her. She didn't forgive him because he apologized. He didn't. She forgave him because she realized she was living in the shadow of a story she no longer wanted to repeat. Forgiveness is breaking the emotional chain that ties you to the person who hurt you. Now let's talk about the emotional symptoms of unforgiveness, because they show up in ways you might not expect. Unforgiveness shows up as tension in your body. It shows up as bitterness in your tone. It shows up as defensiveness. It shows up as anxiety. It shows up as distrust. It shows up as overreactions. It shows up as emotional exhaustion. It shows up as repeating the same relational cycles. It shows up as shutting down when someone gets close. It shows up as anger at yourself, not just at them. Unforgiveness is not silence. It is stored pain. Let me give you a gentle truth. You don't heal by punishing yourself for someone else's actions. You heal by releasing what never belonged inside you. Now, let's talk about the practical and spiritual process of forgiveness. Not the shallow kind. Not the just get over it kind. Real forgiveness. Deep forgiveness that transforms you. Step 1. Acknowledge the wound. You cannot heal what you pretend does not hurt. Be honest with yourself. Be honest with your spirit. Say the words out loud if you need to. It hurt me. It changed me. It affected me. Honesty is the first doorway to release. Step 2. Feel the emotion, don't bury it. Pain must be processed, not suppressed. Cry if you need to. Sit quietly. Reflect. Let the emotion move through you instead of getting stuck inside you. Step 3. Separate the person from the wound. You are not forgiving them because they deserve it. You are forgiving so you can breathe again. So you can rest again. So you can feel again. Step 4. Release the expectation of justice. Not everyone will apologize. Not everyone will see their wrongdoing. Not everyone will acknowledge your pain. Let go of the fantasy that healing requires their participation. Step 5. Understand the role they played. Sometimes the people who hurt you are the same people who taught you the most. Strength, discernment, boundaries, self-worth, courage, independence. Painful teachers are still teachers. Step 6. Pray or speak release into the situation. Say something like, "I release this from my spirit. I release you from my thoughts. I release this wound from my heart. I free myself from this burden." Speak it until your spirit begins to soften. Step 7. Choose peace over pride. Forgiveness is not weakness. Forgiveness is strength. Anyone can hold a grudge, but it takes courage to let go. Step 8. Protect your heart going forward. Forgiveness does not mean reconciliation. Forgiveness does not require access. Forgiveness does not erase boundaries. You can forgive someone and never let them close to you again. That is not pettiness, that is wisdom. Step 9. Allow time to do its work. Forgiveness is a process. Sometimes you forgive in layers. Sometimes you forgive the memory long after you forgave the moment. Be patient with yourself. Step 10. Watch how your spirit becomes lighter. When true forgiveness settles in, your body softens. Your mind becomes quieter. Your heart feels more spacious. Your energy rises. Your joy returns. Forgiveness is spiritual unclogging. It is emotional detox. It is the removal of energetic heaviness. It is releasing the chains that keep you tied to a story you no longer want to live in. Now let me give you one last image, one that helped me deeply. Imagine you're walking through a forest holding a balloon. This balloon represents the pain, the betrayal, the disappointment. Your fist is tight around the string. It feels natural now, you've held it so long that your hand formed around it. But the balloon is pulling you backward. It's slow, subtle, but it's dragging your energy down. Forgiveness is opening your hand, not watching where the balloon goes, not worrying about who sees it float away. Just opening your hand. Release, surrender, freedom. You deserve peace. You deserve rest. You deserve a heart that is not weighed down by yesterday. Let's continue. And I want you to sit with this next truth carefully, because it contains a kind of wisdom that will save you from misinterpreting the very seasons meant to elevate you. Every time you grow, it will feel uncomfortable. Every time you evolve, it will feel unfamiliar. Every time you step into a new version of yourself, it will feel like something inside you is stretching, shifting, rearranging, expanding. And for many people, that discomfort feels like a sign that something is wrong. But the truth is the exact opposite. Discomfort is not a sign of failure. Discomfort is not a sign you took the wrong path. Discomfort is not punishment. Discomfort is not regression. Discomfort is the evidence that you are transforming. Let me begin this part with a simple truth. If it doesn't stretch you, it can't grow you. If it doesn't challenge you, it can't change you. If it doesn't feel new, it can't create a new version of you. Growth does not feel familiar because you've never been this version of yourself before. Let me share a story that helped me understand this. Years ago, I entered a new chapter in life, a chapter that required confidence, responsibility, discipline, and emotional maturity I didn't even know I had. I prayed for growth. I prayed for elevation. I prayed for purpose, and when the season finally began to unfold, I was shocked by how uncomfortable it felt. Suddenly I was making decisions I'd never had to make before, setting boundaries I had previously avoided, letting go of people who no longer aligned, taking risks that felt bigger than my ability, walking into rooms where I didn't feel fully qualified, doing things that stretched me mentally, spiritually, emotionally. And at first I mistook that discomfort as a sign that I wasn't ready. But I wasn't failing. I was growing. Let me give you an example you might relate to. Think about every major moment of growth in your life. The first time you tried something new. The first time you stepped away from a toxic environment. The first time you set a boundary. The first time you walked away from a relationship that was draining you. The first time you chose yourself. The first time you said no when you were scared of disappointing someone. The first time you allowed yourself to rest. The first time you chose peace over chaos. The first time you broke a generational pattern. The first time you decided to heal. None of those moments felt comfortable at first. None of them felt easy. None of them felt natural. Growth rarely feels good until it's complete. Let me take you deeper. Seed must crack before it can grow roots. A caterpillar must dissolve into nothing before it can become a butterfly. Muscles must tear in order to grow stronger. Old habits must die before new habits can form. Old identities must fade before new ones emerge. Transformation is not smooth. Transformation is not tidy. Transformation is not gentle. Transformation is messy. Transformation is emotional. Transformation is disruptive. Transformation shakes your old patterns loose. Let me share a story from someone I once spoke to. She told me that after she left a toxic relationship, she expected to feel free and empowered right away. She thought healing would feel light and peaceful at the beginning, but instead, she felt lost. She felt lonely. She felt confused about who she was without the person she had given so much of her identity to. And she thought this uncomfortable feeling meant she made a mistake. But that wasn't a mistake. That was growth. She wasn't returning to the old version of herself. She was becoming a new version entirely. Sometimes the pain you feel after making the right decision is just your spirit adjusting to a life that is no longer built on survival. Let me give you another example, one you might connect with deeply. Imagine you have always been the person who keeps the peace, the one who avoids conflict, who says yes even when you want to say no, who sacrifices your own needs to make others comfortable, and one day you decide to finally set boundaries. Do you think that would feel comfortable? Not at first. Your voice might shake. Your heart might race. You might feel guilt even though you did nothing wrong. You might worry the other person will be upset. You might question whether you're allowed to choose yourself. But all of that discomfort is part of your growth. Learning how to choose yourself feels uncomfortable when you've spent years being conditioned not to. Growth requires unlearning old habits, unlearning old patterns, unlearning generational baggage.
Unlearning beliefs you inherited from wounded people. Unlearning survival mechanisms that no longer serve you. Growth is not always about becoming more. Sometimes growth is about becoming less of who you were forced to be and more of who you actually are. Let's explore another dimension of this. Growth forces you to confront things you avoided. Your fears, your insecurities, your triggers, your wounds, your past, your beliefs, your behaviors, your cycles. Real growth asks you to face the parts of yourself you hid, ignored, or ran from. That is uncomfortable, but it is sacred. Let me share a powerful analogy. Imagine you've lived in a dimly lit room for most of your life. You're used to the shadows. You're used to the darkness. You've learned how to navigate in limited light. But one day someone opens the curtains. The light floods in. What's your first reaction? You squint. You turn away. You feel overwhelmed. Your eyes sting. You feel the urge to close the curtains again, not because the light is harmful, but because you're not used to it yet. That's what growth feels like. The light is good, but the adjustment is uncomfortable. Now let's go into practical, real guidance, how to emotionally and spiritually navigate seasons of discomfort. First, stop expecting growth to feel like comfort. You are shifting into a version of yourself you've never been before. It's okay if it feels awkward, foreign, or unfamiliar. Second, name the discomfort. Say to yourself, what I'm feeling isn't fear, it's growth. Language changes perspective. Third, take small steps. Transformation doesn't require giant leaps, just consistent movement. Fourth, don't confuse discomfort with danger. Your nervous system might interpret newness as threat, but it's not. It's expansion. Fifth, normalize saying, I'm learning. You don't have to have everything figured out. Growing is learning takes time. Sixth, celebrate progress, not perfection. Every small change matters. Every step forward counts. Seventh, surround yourself with people who understand growth. People stuck in comfort will fear your evolution. Find people who celebrate your becoming. Eighth, give yourself permission to outgrow beliefs, outgrow habits, outgrow environments, outgrow versions of yourself that no longer align. Ninth, honor the discomfort. Instead of resisting it, ask, what is this discomfort teaching me? The lesson is often hidden in the feeling. And 10th, trust the timing of your transformation. Growth has seasons. Sometimes you bloom. Sometimes you shed. Sometimes you stretch. Sometimes you rest. All of it is sacred. Let me leave you with one more image. Imagine a butterfly trying to remain a caterpillar because the transformation feels uncomfortable. Imagine it trying to crawl when it was meant to fly simply because flying feels unfamiliar. Imagine it apologizing for its wings. That's what many of us do. We cling to old identities because the new one feels strange. We shrink because expansion feels awkward. We hide because shining feels different. But you were not created to remain in the version of yourself the world got used to. You were created to evolve, and evolution will require discomfort, but your spirit is strong enough for it. This discomfort you're feeling, it's a sign you're becoming who you were always meant to be. Let's continue. And for this final truth, I want you to settle into your spirit, soften your heart, and allow these words to wash over you gently, because this is the truth that everything else stands on. Everything. Your healing, your purpose, your peace, your identity, your confidence, your sense of belonging. Here it is. God's love is the only constant in your life. People change. Seasons shift. Plans fall apart. Expectations shatter. Circumstances rise and fall. Feelings fluctuate. Environments transform. Friendships fade. Relationships evolve. Bodies age. Minds grow. Dreams shift. But in all of that, through every single transition, one thing has never changed, never weakened, never dimmed, never wavered. God's love for you. Let me begin with something many people do not realize. Most of us grew up learning to associate love with performance. People do not realize. Most of us grew up learning to associate love with performance. We believed love would stay as long as we behaved correctly. We believed affection depended on meeting expectations. We believed belonging depended on who we were on our best days. We believed acceptance was conditional. And because of that, many of us unconsciously projected those fears onto God. We believed God loved us more when we were strong. We believed God moved closer when we behaved. We believed God stayed farther when we slipped. We believed God measured us by perfection. But that is not love. That is fear dressed as spirituality. The truth is simpler, deeper, softer, and more beautiful than most people dare to believe. God's love does not increase when you do well. It does not decrease when you fall. It does not disappear when you doubt. It does not weaken when you struggle. It does not fade when you are tired. It does not shift based on your emotions. God's love is not a mood. It is not a performance review. It is not a reward. It is not a negotiation. It is not a contract. It is an anchor, and anchors remain steady. Let me tell you a story. There was a time in my life when I felt I had disappointed God. I wasn't praying as much. I wasn't as disciplined as before. My heart felt tired, and I felt spiritually empty. I thought, surely God must be frustrated with me, maybe even distant. But even in that season of spiritual dryness, small signs of divine care kept showing up. Unexpected kindness from strangers, doors opening that I did not earn, protection in moments I didn't even ask for, peace that arrived out of nowhere, comfort that came when I wasn't looking for it. And I realized something profound. God was not waiting for me to be perfect. God was simply waiting for me to stop running. We think love leaves when we fall short, but God's love moves closer in the very places we feel most unworthy. Let me ask you something. Have you ever had a moment where you broke down quietly, maybe at night, maybe in the shower, maybe in your car, and you felt something comforting you even though no one was physically there? That quiet warmth, that moment of stillness, that feeling of being held from within. That wasn't your imagination. That was divine love. Have you ever gone through something that should have destroyed you emotionally, mentally, or spiritually, and somehow you made it through? Not because you were strong, but because something carried you. That something was God's love holding you up when you didn't even realize it. Let me give you another kind of example, one you may recognize in your own story. Think about the moments you thought you were alone, but you were not. The moments you survived things you never thought you'd recover from. The moments you lost people but didn't lose yourself. The moments your heart broke but didn't stay broken. The moments life humbled you but didn't destroy you. The moments you felt abandoned but grace still reached you. How do you explain that? Love. A love that does not depend on your worthiness. A love that existed before you were born. A love that follows you into every season. A love that refuses to let go. Let me take you deeper. Many people misunderstand God's love because they compare it to human love. But human love, even at its best, is imperfect. Humans love with conditions. Humans love inconsistently. Humans love with expectations. Humans love with fear. Humans love based on capacity. But God's love is not human. It has no fear, no limits, no exhaustion, no confusion, no pride, no ego. God loves with clarity. God loves with patience. God loves with purpose. God loves with tenderness. God loves with devotion. God loves with eternity in mind. God's love is the only love that will meet you at your lowest and still call you worthy. Let me give you another story, one that illustrates this beautifully. There was a young man who made a series of terrible decisions. He got involved with the wrong people. He hurt his family. He betrayed trust. He lied. He fell into habits that broke him. Eventually, he hit rock bottom emotionally, spiritually, financially. He thought God was done with him. He thought he was too far gone. He thought he ruined his purpose. But one night, when he was overwhelmed with regret, he whispered a simple phrase, not even a prayer, just a weary, desperate whisper, "Help me." And something shifted. Not in the world around him that took time, not in his circumstances those needed rebuilding, but something shifted inside him. He felt a small, quiet peace, a warmth, a softness, a sense that he was not alone. That was love meeting him in the place he least expected it. Some people think God's love finds them in church or during prayer or in holy moments, and yes, it can. But often, God's love finds you in the aftermath of your mistakes, in the silence after heartbreak, in the confusion of transition,
in the exhaustion of carrying yourself too long, in the emptiness of pretending you're okay, in the loneliness of losing people, in the quiet nights where your tears say more than your words, in the moments you feel too flawed to be loved by anyone. God steps into the places humans step away from. Now, let's talk about something important. Your identity is not defined by what you've done. Your identity is not defined by who hurt you. Your identity is not defined by who left. Your identity is not defined by who misunderstood you. Your identity is not defined by your lowest moments. Your identity is defined by who loves you, and God's love is unshakable. Let that settle in your spirit for a moment. You don't have to earn this love. You don't have to deserve it. You don't have to perform for it. You don't have to chase it. You don't have to fear losing it. You don't have to hide your wounds for it. You don't have to be perfect for it. You are loved in your confusion. You are loved in your flaws. You are loved in your becoming. You are loved in your weakness. You are loved in your hiding. You are loved in your healing. You are loved in your brokenness. You are loved in your strength. You are loved in every version of yourself. Nothing else in life offers that kind of stability. Now let's go into the practical, emotional side of this truth. How do you live from a place of knowing you are loved? You stop settling for things beneath your worth. You stop begging for acceptance from people who treat you like an option. You stop shrinking yourself to be chosen. You stop allowing disrespect to stay in your life. You stop fearing the future. You stop punishing yourself for your past. You stop confusing rejection with unworthiness. You stop chasing validation from those who cannot see you. When you know you are deeply loved, you stop living like you are easily replaceable, and something beautiful happens. Your confidence becomes quieter. Your boundaries become stronger. Your relationships become healthier. Your choices become wiser. Your spirit becomes lighter, because you finally understand. Love was never something you had to search for. It was something you were carried by all along. Let me leave you with one final image, one I want you to hold close. Imagine you're in the middle of the ocean, waves crashing, storms rising, the water below you deep and unpredictable. You feel small, you feel overwhelmed, you feel unsure whether you can stay afloat. But beneath you, unseen, unshifting, unbroken, is an anchor holding you in place. That anchor is God's love. It doesn't stop the waves, it steadies you through them. It doesn't eliminate the storm, it keeps you from sinking. It doesn't prevent change, it prevents collapse. And no matter where you go, no matter what season you enter, no matter what you lose or gain, that love stays. And as you breathe, I want you to let everything we've shared today settle gently into your spirit. Not as information, but as transformation. Not as something you simply heard, but as something you can live, carry, and return to any time your soul needs grounding. Because the truth is, every single thing we talked about today already lives inside you. The peace you're looking for, it's in you. The wisdom you're seeking, it's in you. The courage you think you don't have, it's in you. The strength you pray for, it's in you. The clarity you're waiting for, it's in you. The healing you long for, it's in you. Your spirit has been waiting for you to come home to yourself, to stop fighting your becoming, to stop apologizing for your growth, to stop shrinking for people who refuse to grow with you, to stop believing you are broken beyond repair, to stop carrying the weight of what no longer belongs in your life. You are not who you used to be. You are not the mistakes you made. You are not the pain you endured. You are not the versions of yourself that survived instead of lived. You are becoming someone wiser, someone deeper, someone more aligned, someone more aware, someone more compassionate, someone more spiritually anchored. And I want you to hear this clearly. Your journey is not behind you. Your story is not finished. Your purpose is not lost. Your growth is not done. Your life is not waiting, it's unfolding. Every lesson you've walked through, every heartbreak you survived, every prayer you whispered, every moment you questioned, every season that stretched you, every truth you met today, it's all been preparing you for where you're going next. So as you leave this moment, this sacred space we've shared, I want you to walk with a new awareness. You are guided. You are protected. You are growing, even when you don't feel it. You are healing, even when the progress feels slow. You are aligning, even when life feels uncertain. You are loved deeply, relentlessly, endlessly. And nothing that has happened to you, nothing that you've lost, nothing that broke you, nothing that confused you, nothing that delayed you, nothing that shifted you, can stop what God is building in your life now. So walk forward gently. Walk forward courageously. Walk forward with gratitude. Walk forward with awareness. Walk forward knowing that who you are becoming is far greater than who you have been. Thank you for spending this time with me. Thank you for showing up for your healing. Thank you for choosing growth over comfort. Thank you for trusting this journey and trusting yourself. And remember, whenever life gets loud, whenever your heart feels heavy, whenever you feel lost in transition, whenever you forget the truths we explored today, come back to this message. This space will be here for you. These truths will be here for you, and so will the love that is guiding you. Until next time, take care of your mind, take care of your spirit, take care of your heart, take care of the becoming that is unfolding inside you. Peace be upon you, always. Before you go, family, if this message touched you, lifted you, challenged you, or helped you see your journey with new eyes, I want to invite you to stay connected. Subscribe to the channel, not for numbers, not for algorithms, but so you always have a place to return to when your spirit needs grounding, guidance, or encouragement. This space was created for your growth, your healing, your clarity. And if there's someone in your life who might need these truths, someone who's struggling silently, someone who's growing quietly, someone who could use a reminder that they're not alone, share this message with them. You never know whose heart you might strengthen by sending it. Your support helps this family grow, and every share, every comment, every connection plants a seed in someone else's journey. Thank you for being here. Thank you for walking with me. Thank you for choosing growth. Until next time, stay grounded, stay hopeful, and stay open to what God is doing in your life.